Welcome to the Switch4Good podcast. I'm Alexandra Paul, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Dotsie Bausch. Hi, Dotsie.
Hello again. I just saw you this weekend. This is a treat.
Yeah, we were out partying, weren't we?
Oh, yeah, we're crazy
Just like
that.
vegans can do. We were surrounded by 600 other vegans. It was awesome. We were right at home.
Oh, man. I tell you, it's been an exciting couple weeks. I feel like we're just hearing more and more and more in the media about different athletes who are going dairy-free. I mean, we know Kyrie Irving and Alex Morgan and Ali Raceman. And very excitingly, Switch4Good got contacted by Chase Utley's agents, the very famous MLB player who played for the Phillies for 12 or 13 years and then finished his career the last couple of seasons at the Dodgers and is the instigator behind most of the young guys on the Dodgers going dairy-free. So I'm going to have a chance to speak at length with them on Thursday and see how he can get involved in Switch4Good. But
Nice.
it's just kind of incredible how many people are getting the memo, how many athletes are getting the memo, high-level athletes, that ditching dairy can really significantly reduce post-exercise inflammation and help to, by ditching it, helping to really speed up the repair process that an athlete goes through. And we know as athletes, you know, the more work we can do and the more repair, the better athlete we are at the end of the day. So we know that plant foods rock, right? So what we have for the listeners are 3 tips on why plant foods rock and dairy foods don't.
Well, first I want to agree with you that the proof is in the pudding, and athletes they need as much any edge they can get. And my husband, Ian, he is not vegan, but he is dairy free, and he's been dairy free. We've been together 25 years, and he always used to say, "Dairy is death." And it was
Oh, wow.
because,
I didn't know that.
yes. Because he felt that it produced a lot of mucus. And as an athlete, he is a triathlon coach and a triathlete himself, and a very, very good mountain biker and runner, and just does a lot of different sports.
Yeah,
and
he's very impressive.
Endurance sports. So he can feel it if he does have dairy the next day. He just feels like he produces so much more mucus. So for people with breathing issues, asthma, going dairy-free is really important.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is to impede your breathing as an athlete, especially endurance athlete, right? You have to get in as much oxygen as possible into your bloodstream that goes into your working muscles. I mean, quite frankly, you know, I'm from the sport of cycling. That's the major reason that the cheaters blood tope is to get more oxygen into the red blood cells to get to the working muscles. So it's critical that you're taking in optimal oxygen. You can't do that if you're sniveling and sneezing and runny nose and trying to breathe, right? So
this also, however, applies to the regular athlete who goes to the gym for half an hour
No
or
doubt.
5 days a week too, can really help them.
yeah, because you're going there, you want to improve, every time. So we know that tip time, right? Low-fat plant-based foods improve arterial function as well. This helps our body efficiently deliver oxygen and nutrients to the working cells. So not just the oxygen, but all of the nutrients, all of the micronutrients, right, that plant foods hold, that dairy foods are very low in antioxidants. And antioxidants are kind of like the workhorses of repair and recovery.
Yeah, and also plant foods. Everyone talks about omega-3s being really good for you, and they are. But a lot of folks immediately think salmon, but actually, and fish, fatty fish. But actually, plant foods like hemp seeds, chia seeds, they also can give you so much omega-3 without the downsides of nuts, without the downsides of mercury, killing, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Farmed
just pollution.
animals.
Yeah. And I learned from being in the Game Changers film, as far as going back to the power of antioxidants, that even iceberg lettuce has more antioxidant values than salmon or eggs.
What? My mother used to say iceberg lettuce was just water.
Just water. And it has a lot of water, but it also has and antioxidants in it, multiple antioxidants, more than, I mean, it's that's kind of like a head of iceberg lettuce, more than I don't remember the ounces of salmon, but it was just a piece of salmon or 3 eggs. So there you go. That's mind blown.
Wow. Yes. For sure. I'm going to call my mom and tell her about the iceberg lettuce. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. So folks, I think our guest today is actually going to be able to talk more.
I know.
She knows a lot about nutrition and things. So we'll be able to talk more about the benefits of plant foods and why she isn't eating them as an athlete herself.
Yes. All right.
Why she's not eating meat. Sorry. Why she's eating
why
plant
she
foods.
is leaning into plants and away from animal foods. So I would love to start telling people about our guest today. I am excited to introduce her. She always has a perpetual smile on her face. Audrey Dunham is a vegan sports nutrition specialist, a fitness trainer, a former fitness competitor, a recipe developer, and owner of Peanuts Bake Shop, an amazing vegan and gluten-free cookie mix company. She's also married to competing and ventriloquist. I knew I would not be able to say that successfully. I proved myself right. Jeff Dunham, and a mom of 2 adorable twin boys. And while she seems to do it all, Audrey is incredibly relatable and down to earth. She was when I got to meet her for the first time a while back at a PCRM event where we both spoke. She offers a realistic approach to help others live just a bit happier and healthier. And she also has advice to share on how to let go of something that you're holding on to that is no longer serving you. With a dumbbell in one hand and a cookie in the other and 2 kids in tow, Audrey shares her contagious smile with the world. So welcome, Audrey. Everyone can... Hello there. There's a beautiful smile.
Thank you both. Thank you so much. And I just have to start by saying, I'm going to put on my fangirl hat for a moment. The 2 of you, come on. I'm so happy you found each other because you are a force to be reckoned with. I mean, between the activism and the athleticism, you 2 are my heroes, and it is more than an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you both today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're the best. But we just have a really good time doing this, don't we? I mean,
yes, we do. And I am glad that we found it is like we found each other, right? Yeah. So that's really fun. Thank you for saying that.
Have you been friends for a long time, or did you find each other
through
Switch4Good?
We met both on a panel. So you were both speaking at an event, and we met on a panel.
Right.
And actually Ian knew of you too.
Yeah, I'd known her husband for a long time. I mean, Ian and I have ridden up and down PCH, 16, 17 years ago, multiple times.
Totally badass.
So Ian's a force. So yeah, anyway, that's how it came about.
I love it. That's great.
So as I mentioned, Audrey, I met you at PCRM event, and you were interviewed by Kathy Freston.
Yes, the one and only.
Absolutely, the one and only. She's on our board of directors at Switch4Good. I snagged her. She's incredible.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And there's so many things that I learned about you while you were on that panel that we want to dive into today to share with our listeners. But something that really struck me is you had a very candid conversation with Kathy about kind of the pressure and the unhealthy habits that you were forming by competing in bodybuilding, in fitness competition.
Certainly.
And so I want to start off with, I want to know how you share with our listeners how you got into bodybuilding, but really ultimately why you got out.
Oh boy. Okay. So I started into it. It was really funny. I was actually in Los Angeles pursuing acting, but had always loved the fitness industry, loved being active. And then one day I just happened to go on an audition for a fitness infomercial. And I had, I was living the life in Los Angeles, going out and drinking and partying way too much. I was just in a tough time in life. I was ready for a big change. I didn't like that lifestyle anymore. So I went in there and basically talked these guys into letting me be part of this fitness infomercial. And they were looking for people who were willing to train on their cardio equipment for 8 weeks, stick to a diet, and have great transformations. And whoever had the biggest transformation, the most body fat percentage lost, was going to be featured in the fitness infomercial. So I walked in, I just said, I'm your girl. I'm going to kill this. I'm going to get in great shape. Please hire me because I will make you proud. And so I got the gig. And it was that day forward that I switched from pursuing acting to fitness and nutrition.
Wow.
So after so there's 22, 23 of us who got chosen in the group. We trained for 8 weeks. And I remember they handed us a piece of paper with our diet they wanted us to stick to. And I'm looking at this going, what? I can have 3 Hershey Kisses at the end of the day? This is ridiculous. I can do way better than this. Had like Eggo waffles on it, which I'm sure may have been an improvement from what some people were eating. I don't know. I can look back now and think that they were just trying to create a sense of balance so it wasn't too strict. Mm-hmm. I get that now. So I killed it. I got the best results out of anybody in the group after those 8 weeks. And from that point on, I was totally hooked. I said, okay, what's next? And I attended a fitness expo and met some fitness competitors, saw my first fitness competition. And I just stood there in awe thinking, I got to do this. This is me. I'm going to get the dark tan. I'm going to get the 6-pack. I'm going to do the whole thing. I can't wait. And just dove in head first, hired a trainer, got certified in certified in sports nutrition and fitness training while I was training for my first competition, and then went on to do 7 fitness competitions within 5 years.
And you did get that 6-pack because I've seen a picture of you on stage. And
Totally.
You look amazing.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I'll ever see those days again. I carry twins, but it's nice to look back. But I do have to say, I was vegetarian going in, and my coach, he was the big hot coach at the time. He worked with hundreds of competitors, didn't have time to really work one-on-one with each person. So it was kind of cookie cutter, and I have a lot of regrets staying with him for so long now in retrospect. But I did learn a lot about the whole process and what not to do in the future. But I told him, I said, so I'm a vegetarian. I see the plan you gave me here includes a lot of chicken and egg whites and things like that. And I really don't eat any of those things. And he goes, well, you can train as a vegetarian, but that's going to be a lot of tofu. And at the time, I don't even know if I had even had tofu. I was really just eating a lot of grains and beans and things like that. And at the time, some dairy. And so for a while, I ate the tofu and went that route. But after a while, I got a lot of pressure in my local gym, the local Gold's gym, and with all these big guys saying, hey, if you really want to succeed, you're going to have to start eating some chicken and some fish and things like that. So I drank the Kool-Aid, and the next thing I know, I'm at Whole Foods staring at the butcher counter and looking at all of these pieces of meat, thinking, how am I going to do this? And I remember the butcher just standing there staring at me saying, okay, have you made a choice yet? And I'm like, nope. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can find one that was humanely raised and is the healthiest one out there. And so that's what I tried to do. Ended up going back into chicken and turkey and that sort of thing, and egg whites, learning to like egg whites and going that route. And then finally, after 7 fitness competitions, I couldn't do it anymore. I was so sick of it, sick of the lifestyle. I love to cook. I love to bake. And none of those things were really included in a fitness competitor's lifestyle, except for cooking your chicken, cooking your broccoli, and cooking your brown rice. And that was it. And I just needed a little more balance in my life. So that's why I got out of the fitness industry. And it really took me a long time to repair my relationship with food, because for 5 years straight, I had this list of foods that I needed to stick to. And in my mind, if I ate anything that wasn't on that list, I was cheating, or I was going to get fat instantly. And the guilt was tremendous. And then what that does is it leads to just a domino effect of feeling horrible and eating more of those foods, because you've realized, okay, I've ruined it now, so might as well just keep going with it until finally you can't do that anymore, and then you start the next strict diet. So I was desperate to find some sort of balance, some sort of just repair the damage in my brain that had been done, to where I could be back to those times when I was a little kid, not worrying about my weight so much, being able to eat a cookie if I felt like it, just being completely comfortable in my skin again. And so I was on a quest from that point forward to find that again.
I have a question about, just for our listeners who might think, also believe the bodybuilders with whom you spoke. Now, this was a little while ago, so things might have changed. We've spoken to bodybuilders on this show, and they say that the bodybuilding world is more open to plant-based eating and looking great on stage. Do you believe that you can be a fitness competitor and be plant-based? And if so, is it just about eating a lot of tofu?
Oh, it's really fascinating. Nowadays, there are so many vegan competitors out there. I mean, Nimai Delgado is the ultimate example, but there are a ton of women out there too who have just crushed it, who are doing phenomenally on a vegan plant-based diet as fitness competitors. And there's a lot of debate as to how much protein you really need. I personally haven't competed on a vegan plant-based diet, but when I follow some of these other women on social media, which, gosh, I wish I had social media back then because I would have been able to discover some of these awesome people back then to see that there is another way. But I'm thankful they're there now and that social media exists so that we can see. But they do eat a tremendous amount of protein. I think it would be fascinating to do an experiment someday to see if I could get away with just 15% protein rather than the 40 or 50% that they say you need. And, there actually are some coaches out there that say it can be done. I follow some of them on social media. There's one girl in Australia who is this killer coach. Her clients look amazing, and she claims it's all about high carbs. But you just have to be willing to put in a little extra time because the fat will come off slower. But ultimately, you're going to feel better. You're going to look better because you're going to have better performance in the gym from the higher carb diet. But you just have to be a little bit more patient, which I think would be 100% worth it. And
you're satiated. Like you're not starving all the time, right? Like you feel good and you're feeding your brain because we know the brain operates off of almost 100% glycogen. So,
totally.
Right?
I mean,
when we starve ourselves of carbs.
You won't swing like you said you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I remember there were times that I wanted to eat my hand. I was so hungry, and I was just miserable, counting down until my next meal or snack, and trying to keep everything spaced 2 to 3 hours apart. And just my brain I couldn't even get any work done because I was numb, just hungry and tired, and trying to focus and stay busy on other things, and it was brutal. But really, I mean, carbohydrates are the number one fuel source for the body. There's a reason why we crave carbs. It's because that's what we're supposed to be eating. And nowadays, I mean, I love the fact that I can tell people protein is not the number one concern. It's fiber. So when you go after foods that are naturally high in fiber, not Fiber One bars, but the foods that are naturally high in fiber, then you get all the protein you need naturally. And granted, if you are an athlete, everybody is different. So some people might perform better if they do incorporate more tofu or tempeh, things like that, then that's great for them. Other people, maybe they'd be better with grains and vegetables and beans. And you kind of have to figure out what works best for each person and not only how you look, but how you feel, what your performance is like. All of those things need to be factored in. So,
well, most of our listeners aren't bodybuilders or fitness competitors. And you mentioned fiber, and we've talked about this before. Everyone says to us, especially Dotsie, who is an Olympian, where did you get your protein? And few of us know. I would imagine that none of our listeners know someone who lacks protein unless they're restricting their calories too much.
Totally.
But fiber
it doesn't exist.
Over 90% of Americans don't get enough. I think there's only 3% of Americans eat enough fruits and vegetables each day. And I'm sure there's a huge component. I mean, we know just from looking at television and the ads for laxatives and things, how fiber is an issue.
Yeah. The USDA recommends about 30 to 35 grams, which is still, I think, greatly under, right? But people are eating like 10. And my husband, who has genetic high cholesterol, hypercholesterolemia, his doctor wants him eating 100.
Yeah, well, that's
so
what they
just
do.
To kind of give a range of.
How does he do that? How does he get in 100? Does he have to get supplement? Because I remember reading this study in Africa where the kids could actually have a bowel movement on command. They could just like
because they were eating so much fiber.
Yeah, because
yeah,
you know, and just like we go in the doctor's office and they say here pee in a cup and we manage. 99% of us wouldn't be able to do that, to have a bowel movement on command. But in Africa, where they eat just a really unprocessed, high fiber diet, which is close to 100 grams, like our ancestors ate, they can. I guess now I know that.
So I'm not sure how often he goes to the bathroom. I've been together for 16 years and I still have that husband who pretends like he doesn't go to the bathroom. Like he's like almost like a chick in that way. He goes and hides in like the third bathroom. I have no idea how often. I'm not going to ask. But it's beans. I did a ton of research and put like a menu together for him. Of course I did. And it's in the beans. I mean, it's in the cruciferous vegetables, and it's in the pectin in apples. He eats a couple apples a day. And it's in different fruits. But I mean, where you really get the bulk of it, it's in the lentils, in the kidney beans, in the garbanzo beans, in the black beans. So he literally eats like whole amounts of just beans. He's weird. He doesn't even put salt and pepper. He's like, I think they're just delicious just by themselves.
He's my kind of guy. I don't add salt either, but good for him. Is that what you tell your clients?
Was there a period of adjustment for him? Because I think if the average person just jumped right in and tried to lower their cholesterol, I mean, they would be bent over with
just in so much gut distress. I know from yes, there was a transition period, and then we know from having Dr. Sadeghi, the gastroenterologist, on our show, which she deals with this all the time, getting people to turn over to a plant-based diet. She, first she starts them with potatoes. Right, adding things that are much easier on the stomach, moving into, a half a can of beans a day, where she, eventually wants to get them up to 3, and that's about what she eats, and that's probably what Kirk eats. So it definitely, because if it sort of depends on what you were eating before. If you're eating, McDonald's for breakfast, Burger King for lunch, and Taco Bell for dinner, it's a. But if you're eating maybe a little bit of meat and a lot of vegetables already, it's a bit of an easier transition.
It's easier. I think that the other thing for people to keep in mind is that our bodies don't have the enzymes if they don't need them sometimes. And so they don't necessarily have that built up in the gut yet to handle that load of nutrients or that type of fiber or what have you. And so the body's number one job is to survive. And so as those foods become more and more incorporated into your diet, little by little, it will build up the enzymes and have the capability to take on the high amount of fiber and the types of foods that you're eating, including beans.
Mm-hmm. Now on I think it's either your YouTube channel or your very excellent website, your blogs. I think it's your YouTube channel, which has so many recipes and tips. You have tips on how to deal with beans, actually, how to make them promote less gas. Can you talk to us about that?
A big part of making the beans okay for the gut is to soak them really, really well. So even if they're in a can, what I do is I take them out, drain them, rinse them really, really thoroughly, and then I will stick them in more water. And that helps. Even if you just have 20 minutes to spare, even 5 minutes, up to a couple of days, if you can let those beans soak for even longer, there's a better chance that your stomach will be able to handle those beans. So that's one little tip. And of course, if you're making beans from scratch, you want to soak them maybe an extra 24 hours. So 2 days rather than just one. There's even some doctors online. You jump on YouTube, you can find them talking about how nobody is soaking their beans long enough these days. Everybody's in a hurry trying to get this done, and that's why a lot of us have a hard time with them. So that's key, I think. The other thing to keep in mind is knowing how important and how healthy beans are for you. You should really have to go after it. Really know that you're going to make beans a regular part of your life. And what you will find is that there's some beans that you'll be able to handle a little bit better than others. So for me in the beginning, lentils and black beans were a little tough. So I stuck with more garbanzo beans and white beans. And then slowly, as I got more and more used to them, I started to incorporate the lentils, the black beans. And if you do those little bits at a time too, you build up the enzymes and the capability to digest them as well. So I think it's important to realize that not all beans are created equal, that sometimes you have to experiment a little bit to see which ones work best for you, especially in the beginning.
I have a question about that. I learned, and you can tell me if this is correct because it's just like my own experiment. The beans that when you rinse them kind of easily fall apart, like white beans and garbanzo beans, you know how they kind of seem a lot easier on the gut than like kidney beans or black beans. And when you rinse them, they do not change their shape at all. They just stay super hard. And those seem like they're a little bit harder on the gut. Is that like true, or is that just my own assumption?
That's interesting. I've never thought about that, but that might make sense. I mean, theoretically, we're all supposed to be chewing our food really, really thoroughly. None of us really do. We're all eating way too quickly these days. And but you do start the digestive process in the mouth, which is a whole nother topic. But so that's interesting. I mean, because once it gets into the stomach, it is supposedly mashed really well. So I don't know. That's a great question. I'm going to be Googling that later today.
Okay.
So it sounds like soaking more than normal, no matter what, even if it comes from a can, and chewing, pre-digesting everything.
And rinsing.
And rinsing.
Like
rinsing
after
is very
Really,
important.
really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't give up on beans, folks. Try
They're
these
so
tips
good,
from you. Yeah. They're so good for you.
And hummus is a great way to kind of get into it too, because they are made from garbanzo beans, but it's sort of a watered down, if you will, because it has so many other ingredients. So if that's how you have to start, then start there and move forward. Just don't give up. Even if it's a tablespoon or two tossed into your salad or just as a snack on the side. In fact, there's a brand of beans. They're called Brahmi beans. And they're made from, oh gosh, what type of beans is it? Lupini beans. And they're super high in protein. Anyway, this company called Brahmi, I'm doing a little commercial for them right now. They have beans that are in a snack form now. They're in a little envelope. You can find them kind of near the produce section these days. They have several flavors. That's a great way to get more beans into your life, and they taste amazing. They're pre-seasoned. I've even shared them on social media because I think everybody should know about them. They're a great company.
Wow. We'll just
They're
check those
super
out.
We'll put them, we'll put their website in the show notes. So you just send that to me and we'll put it in. I wanted to talk about bread because you talked about carbs being great, but bread has been demonized. And I know you work with clients, and we all struggle with when at restaurants, most of people struggle with restaurants and the bread in restaurants and things. And so what is your attitude about bread after being a fitness competitor, yet being a huge supporter of carbs? Where do you stand now?
At this point, as long as it's plant-based vegan, I think a little bit won't hurt. So even if it's a white processed bread, there's nothing more tempting than a bread basket that comes to the table in a restaurant, right? Especially if you're really hungry. If you love bread, trying to get yourself not to eat that can be torture, really. And so what I try and do is to say, okay, I know that's white bread. It's not the highest quality fuel, but it's definitely not the worst thing in the world. So I try to stick with one piece. And then usually my little son, Jack, eats the rest of the basket anyway. So the kid is a breadaholic, if you will. He can eat an entire basket himself when he's only 3. But anyway, so I think if you try and stick to one piece, it's great. And then, of course, they always bring the butter to the table as well. I just never even let it hit the table at this point. I send it away, and then I just ask for some olive oil. And if you're missing that little bit of a saltiness that comes from butter, then you can add a little bit of salt to your olive oil. And you really, it's amazing. It's delicious. It's a nice way to be able to find some balance in your life. And then you just aim for some really great high quality foods from that point on for the rest of your meal. It's a nice way to find balance. You
speak about balance a lot. And you said that when you were like coming out of the fitness competitor lifestyle, that you just had this desire to kind of go back to your childhood and be like you were when you're 5 and be able to eat a cookie whenever you want, which is an interesting connection because you came out of bodybuilding and started a cookie company.
Right.
So what inspired? Was it because you wanted to feel like you were 5 again and just not have all these rules around food and this restriction and be able to just live and eat freely? And you thought
Yeah, definitely. There's a part of that. But at the same time, I also loved fitness. I also loved feeling fit and feeling healthy and being healthy. And so I was trying to find the perfect happy medium there. And I looked around, and I think we all know those people that don't have a care in the world. They seem to eat whatever they want. They don't really know that much about nutrition, maybe a little bit. And they stay very, very slim, year-round, no roller coaster dieting. They always look great. And I think most of us know a handful of people like that. And so
I think that's you,
sit back and
Dotsie.
look at that.
Dotsie's actually like that, though. She knows
After
about nutrition.
a lot of hard work, though.
Yeah. Who just,
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that kill it in the gym, making incredible workouts. They're burning a tremendous amount of calories, like you, Dotsie. And so,
No, I mean hard work and just getting to where I was peaceful around food.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the workout, right? Like, it was. But there are those natural people, maybe
who
since
just
birth.
eat intuitively and choose the
When they're
right,
hungry
quote unquote, right thing.
Yeah.
That's not
That's
me.
exactly right. It came down to, I just was fascinated, wondering what in the world are they doing differently? And what I noticed, some of these good friends of mine, was that they usually stopped eating when they had enough. They never felt that pressure to clear our plates, which I think that goes back to childhood. You have your parents that tell you to eat more, take 5 more bites, to clear your plate. When really small children and babies, they know exactly when to stop, when they're full, when they've had enough. And so some people just never really let go of that, and they're able to hold on to it, probably because they never started a diet in their lives, because that's where things start to go wrong and you start to lose those natural instincts. But then you're also surrounded by the media, social media, magazines, telling you what you need to look like, how you should be eating, what type of diet you should try. And that really, you think about it, if we all grew up in the middle of nowhere on a farm, where you're growing your own vegetables and food and making everything from scratch, you probably would have never even heard the term diet, or ever heard of anybody going on a diet of any kind or wanting to lose weight. And so it can be challenging, but there's some people that manage to hold on to that natural feeling of, okay, this is what I feel like eating right now. I'm going to eat until I'm full, and then they usually end up taking their leftovers home with them at the restaurant, or they just leave it there, and they're totally fine with it. They don't worry about the food waste. I know that's a whole other problem, but I think that's a problem with portion sizes in restaurants. That's a whole other topic, being downsized a little bit. But so I started to really dig in and think, okay, how can I get these instincts back? And so, sure enough, I started to study intuitive eating, read a couple books on that. But really, the thing about intuitive eating is that it can take some time to be able to listen to those body cues that you've learned to somehow ignore or suppress over years. And it's kind of like a rewiring that needs to be done. For myself personally, what I ultimately found was if I just tried to choose, not even try, if I just chose the highest quality calories for each meal, and then only ate treats when I really felt like it, then that was the key to success. So trying to eat as many vegetables and fruit into each meal as I could, making sure that every calorie is as high quality as possible. And then those times when you really want a treat, that's when you have one and you feel totally fine with it. You walk away knowing, wow, that was good. I'm happy I did that. And then that's it. That's it. End of story. No guilt. You don't carry it around with you the rest of the day, worrying about it, feeling guilty about it. You don't dive off the deep end because you had one cookie. You don't order a pizza from that point on. You just go about life, and then it's on to the next meal after that. You don't worry about it anymore. But getting to that point where you really are able to listen to body cues and know when you're hungry to start with, and then also when you've had enough, can take some practice. So I think for me, it really took about a good year or so to get to that point where I felt like, all right, I really got this now. But really, having the knowledge behind the vegan diet, the plant-based diet, knowing how low the calories are for all the foods, but how filling they are due to the fiber and water, that was also a key for me too, because I realized, wow, I can have a giant salad, put some quinoa on it, avocado, and then I just leave off the chicken that I was eating before, and I'm already saving 240 calories from leaving off the chicken, but I'm still getting everything I need, and I'm still really, really full. So it was fascinating learning about the plant-based diet, the vegan diet, how you're able to be just fine, super healthy, even on a vegan healthy plant-based diet, and then at the same time, the bonus is that you lose weight.
Yeah. So what do you remember the books that you read? We had Jenna Hollenstein on, who is she is a therapist and has written several books on intuitive eating, which she calls heartful eating. I think we decided it was mindful, but with with your emotions involved,
connecting
your heart,
the soul and the heart, right?
Do you remember the books that you read so that our
I do.
readers...
Yeah, it was a series, I believe. I think the very first one I read it was more of a self-love type of book, getting that self-love back. I believe the title was, it was really long. It was, if you're going to eat in front of the refrigerator, then pull up a chair or something like that. And I need to look up the author. I'm blanking on the author right now, but she's incredible and she's written a ton of books. Hopefully a lot of you know who I'm talking about. I really wish I could give her credit. And then after that, I read a book called French Women Don't Get Fat. And this was basically, I mean, you get hungry just reading this book, talking about her life. I think it was on a farm, actually, where her mom, her job was to cook all day. And so she made these incredible meals that were all made from scratch, mostly using food that they grew there. And that was, once one meal was done, her mom would start the next one. And she always had a whole pie made with the fruit that was growing on the tree in the backyard. It was really fascinating, and I love that book. It really made you realize, okay, this is how the French eat. They all look great for the most part, so they're on to something. This is their mentality, so what can we learn from them? So I love that book too. But then when it actually got into intuitive eating, there was a book called How to Have Your Cake in Your Skinny Jeans Too, which was really, really great. I don't think she actually even used the term intuitive eating in the book, but that's what it was. Basically, was sharing her view on how to approach that idea and what her experience was and how she lost a tremendous amount of weight and has been able to keep it off. So, and then from that point on, though, I was able to reconnect with myself, really, not this image of a fitness competitor that I was trying to live up to, and happily bake in the kitchen. Create Peanuts Bake Shop, which is, as Dotsie, as you mentioned, is vegan and gluten-free, non-GMO. The one thing that I do is I try and use the highest quality ingredients that I can, all while never sacrificing flavor. My goal is to really show people how great and how decadent vegan food can be, all while bringing families together or just yourself into the kitchen to bake again, make things from scratch rather than make something that's packaged. So I use garbanzo bean flour, oat flour, fava bean flour, ground flax seeds, all in there. But so is sugar, and so is a really great chocolate. And so the cookies are great, and you would never know by the flavor. It's a little commercial there. I had to throw that out. But
I'm glad you did.
So Peanuts Bake Shop. Peanuts Bake Shop has been my baby aside from my babies. I launched the product while I was pregnant with my twins, which was insane. I don't recommend doing that.
You were craving a good cookie. I know, and you decided to make one. So, well,
yeah,
speaking,
and I launched my website at the same time, so it was a crazy time. But
your website is audreydunham.com.
Correct.
And peanutsbakeshop.com.
Peanutsbakeshop.com, which is actually just the shop section of my website, but it'll reconnect you there if you just do the URL Peanuts Bake Shop. You'll go straight there.
Great. Well, speaking of kids, you have twins, and
right.
So I wanted to talk to you about how you're raising them into vegan and what kind of pushback you get in terms of, do they get enough protein and things? So tell us a little bit about.
And are you a bad mother because you're restricting them from this entire food group known as, breast milk from the cow?
Right. When in the very beginning, it was a little tough. My dad, he's amazing. I love him so much. He was a little concerned about them not having dairy, as a lot of people are. He said, well, if they don't have any dairy, then they're going to become lactose intolerant. And at the time, I was really taken back. But I mean, if I could go back, what I would have said was, well, there's a reason for that. If we're not able to digest the lactose, and that should be telling you something. We're not meant to be eating it. And so, it's really hard, especially for the grandparents, to be okay with it because they've been eating this way and been taught a certain thing their entire lives. I mean, this is decades of being sent these messages, and they truly believe that milk is something that is required for good health, when really it is the exact opposite. And as we will talk about each and every day. And so I just stuck to my guns and fed them the highest quality foods that I could every single day, got them loving vegetables right off the bat, loving avocado right from the very beginning. It's really important. But even for those of you out there who have kids who are a little bit older, don't think that it's a lost cause at this point. People are even kids are open to trying new things, especially if they see you eating them, and especially if they're served in a way that looks really good and it smells good. So, and sometimes they'll like some vegetables better than others. So I really encourage parents out there to get out there, buy some amazing looking vegetables in the grocery store, even if you start with the bright red bell peppers and the orange carrots, and start there and then move into the green ones. At this point, I'm so thankful my boys actually think green foods are cool. It's like the whole it's green, and green, everything is cool.
Popeye.
So I'm thankful for that. I hope that it sticks. Then of course they start school. Thankfully, their school is very understanding, and they allow me to bring in their own snacks, their own lunch. And I have a friend who has a plant-based little girl too, and they don't allow her to bring in her own food. I mean, for me, that'd be a deal breaker. I'd be like, all right, we're finding a new school. But they're great that way, and they communicate with me. Okay, so I just want to let you know that today Jack asked for some Ritz crackers. He saw the other kids eating them. So how do you want me to handle that? And I said, I got it. I'm going to find some crackers that are just as good, that look similar, and I'll make sure that he has those for snack too. And so trying to navigate it right now, I've been able to do it pretty successfully. I know it's going to become more challenging as they start to attend birthday parties and they're going to go to their friends' homes. I think the key is communication, making sure you tell the kids why. And I've actually already started with that. In fact.
And do you talk about the health aspect or the animal aspect, or what aspect do you talk about when you talk to your kids?
Well, kids, I think most of them are animal lovers. They love dogs, cats. I mean, you name it. Most kids, they're big animal lovers. And so if you let them know this came from a cow or this is a cow, instead of calling it beef or just saying milk, then you're getting real with them right off the bat. And I'll even say, like, okay, so that hamburger that is a dead cow. And I'm not lying. I'm not saying that isn't anything that isn't true. I said, but if you want something like that, then we'll have veggie burgers. And he'd be like, okay. And so that night we'll have veggie burgers, and he might just take a bite or two because it's something new, but he doesn't feel like he's missing out. So, but we'll even walk into Starbucks and he'll see the little small cartons of the milk sitting there, and he'll pick it up. At this point, he'll be like, "Mommy, ew!" I'm like, "That's right, son."
Ew.
That's great. Yeah.
You have a entertainer, ventriloquist, I can say it this time, husband who is really, really intelligent with the way that he does his comedy. And
it's so funny.
So funny. He's hysterical and wildly famous. And a lot of his followers, you and I talked about this the first time I met you, are more from parts of the country who maybe haven't gotten all the memos of what we're talking about today. It's kind of not on their radar so much, this like plant-based vegan thing. Does he talk about your all's lifestyle, how you're raising the kids? It must be a little bit of a slippery slope, right? Because they're coming to him obviously for his gift, his talent, his amazing ability to make people laugh, and so it's a balance. But how does he share with people, but not maybe make it too much, or at least even make it just palpable for people in like the Midwest and the South?
I think, we basically look at it like the same way you would politics. You don't want to express anything personal in that regard. Otherwise, you're going to be turning off a lot of people. So you have to be very, very careful with that. But in the meantime, we support PCRM and we make sure that we do as much good as we possibly can. And he doesn't hide in any way from that. He's proud to help. There's a new initiative that's coming up where it's to beat breast cancer. And so along with James Cameron, we're going to be part of that project very proudly. PCRM does amazing work. So he's very generous that way. He is happy to help because he realizes after listening to me so much, how much it can change lives and change people's health, all while realizing that people follow him because he's funny. And they want the jokes and they want to escape from normal life. And so it's really just not his job to discuss health or anything else or politics, because people most of the time just don't want to hear it. They want to hear something funny, all while, sharing some family photos here and there so they can get to know him, see what his life is like, but never getting too personal in that regard. He just leaves it to me because he realizes I'm the food person, I'm the nutrition person. And so the other day we actually went to Burger King and got the Impossible Whoppers. And he posted a picture of me holding a couple of them up in the air, so he just posted about how fantastic it was that it was my idea to go to Burger King, even though I work in nutrition, and that ended up being one of his top posts for the summer. It was it got the most likes. Granted, the comments were very
right. I was going to ask.
Up and down. And a lot of people were saying, "Well, I heard that it's not a healthy food and it's no healthier than meat," and so of course, like the fat grams and the calories are not really the issue. It's sustainable eating. Burger King is a treat no matter what, even the Impossible Whopper, as long as you realize that and you're not eating it necessarily to become the best athlete you can be, rather, or to lose weight, but it is still a treat, but it is just one better for the environment. Better for animals. There's the water. I mean, the tremendous amount of water saved. So anyway, there's so much that goes into it, and it's hard to reply to all the comments. And he left a lot of them alone, and then I just jumped in here and there and replied to a couple. But so he's very, very supportive in all the projects that I do, and he's happy to eat any of the food I make. For him, he wants to live a long, happy life, cancer-free, heart disease-free, and he wants to look good. And as long as the food tastes good, then why not, right?
Yeah. You guys did a show on Food Network in 2017, right? Incredible Edible America with the Dunhams. Or something. Was that all plant-based?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So here's the story behind this show. And I really don't talk about it much simply because it was it was something that it was a big learning experience for me. I'll put it that way. I hate to use the word regret. I'll just say learning experience.
Okay. That's right.
At the time, so in August of 2016, we went to Food Network headquarters in New York. Jeff's management company had a connection with Food Network and produced several of their shows. So we had an idea. I was working in food. I was making recipes. So why not expand our horizons, see if they'll be up for doing a cooking show where Jeff occasionally makes appearances here and there. So we went in, and the woman that we met with was a huge fan of Jeff. She was so excited just to have him there. And she's like, "Okay, this is great. Let's create a show." And so I brought in an iPad, shared several pictures of my Tex-Mex black bean burgers, my sweet potato burgers, all these different recipes that I had. She's like, "This looks amazing. Great. Okay, let's figure out what we're going to do, and we'll go from there." So it was a big celebration that night. We're like, "All right, great. This is going to be fantastic." Yeah. And I guess this will be the first vegetarian show on Food Network. Time goes by, and after this woman met with the rest of her team at Food Network, nobody liked the idea because they weren't into the idea of having a vegetarian food show. So they said, "Okay, instead, how about we do a traveling show where Audrey and Jeff visit different cities and you look for some of the most outlandish, crazy dishes out there." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I was vegan already, but kind of newly vegan, and I would still have a little bit of dairy and eggs type foods here and there. It was kind of like a special occasion type food. So I rationalized that in my mind, saying, okay, this will be like a special occasion each time that we try a crazy sundae or something like that, and or some big gigantic pancakes, and then I'll just be sure to share on my social media that this is my outlook, this is why I'm doing it. And when your instincts are screaming at you, you really should listen. And so I expressed my concerns to Jeff's management, and they said, "Look, just get your foot in the door, show them that you can be a great host. And then after that season, we can talk to them about you having your own food show. But you have to prove to them that you're great on camera and that you can and have a fantastic cooking show for them as well. And so just hang in there. You really don't even have to eat much. You can sit there while Jeff does. And it was all really, I was just so torn. And I really wanted to believe what they said. So we start filming, and the very first restaurant that we visit in Las Vegas is this like $10,000 hamburger or something that has,
oh my,
it has has this caviar and this expensive beef or whatever, and foie gras or something crazy like that on it. But the most expensive ingredient was the Dom Perignon champagne that they served on the side. So I just said, okay, I'm going to sit on the side and I'm going to drink the champagne while you eat the burger because I'm not going to eat that. And so it was nuts. And so basically that's how I tried to get through the entire season. It was 6 episodes, and I hung in there and thought, okay, this is going to be for the greater good. I'm going to have the first vegetarian or vegan Food Network show. I got to just stick with it. And then we're getting ready for the premiere of the show, and we find out the woman that was the big fan of Jeff, that was really pushing for us, that got us the show, got fired. Mm-hmm. So now this new group of guys come in, and next thing you know, we're at the 10 o'clock slot on Monday night. No push for the show or anything. I mean, it was all kind of crazy. And Food Network, I loved Food Network. I learned how to cook watching them. They were amazing for me to learn the basics in the kitchen. I love a lot of the Food Network hosts. And but if you want to hear the real story, that's the real story. I'm sharing it with you now because I don't think I've ever really shared it on my blog or anything. I just kind of wanted it to be part of my past, be a learning experience. I still watch the Food Network every now and then for inspiration. I think they have a lot of great recipes that I can make into vegan versions. And I love the hosts and things like that. But that show went away pretty quickly. And all I was left with was a learning experience and realizing you really have to stay true to who you are. Listen to your gut. And even though Jeff and I had a great time traveling together and doing that show, it was really, really tough. It was hard to navigate my way through that, figuring out how in the world I was going to keep from having not eat some of these foods that I didn't want to eat, even though I'm a co-host of the show. Mm-hmm. So there is, so it's not, I wish I could think of the name. It's something about being in an interview where I forget all this important information. But there is one network that I always catch around 10 a.m. or so, but it's some obscure network, and it's a vegetarian show. And it's great. I wish I could give you
But it's
the
not on
exact
Food
name.
Network.
It's not correct.
No.
So,
I know
but I
2 or 3 stories like hers. The Food Network.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, they're just like...
And they haven't yet?
It's their advertisers. Give me a break. Follow the dollar every time. I'm grumpy about it, I know. But it's just ridiculous. Sure. I mean, it's just like, a portion of the population is eating this way. And they're, it's awesome, delicious food, and it saves our lives. So get on board.
Well, Audrey, you've got a YouTube channel that has a lot of recipes. So people can go there. If the Food Network channel is too dumb to have you, then thank goodness for YouTube.
I think that's honestly that's part of the reason why I started the YouTube channel. I was like, well, I'm going to have my food show one way or the other.
Yeah, and she is an incredible support and contributor to Switch4Good because none of us there are chefs or recipe makers or have any idea what we're doing in that category. So thank you for always being willing and open to sharing all of your knowledge and all of your recipes. We have them all over our site too.
Yeah. Well, there's a, I know you have a chocolate chip cookie dough muffin or something that I looked at to see how you make it. Not because I'm a terrible baker, but I was just intrigued by it. It looks so delicious. And then when I read how you did it and saw how it was done, it really didn't look that hard, actually. Yeah. So you really have a good knack of making things look much more simple.
Oh, thanks. That's really the goal. I mean, knowing that that Jeff's fans initially were going to be the ones that would be seeing my videos, checking out my recipes, because everybody's curious about who his wife is, and if they're Googling him, then some of my stuff might pop up. I really want to make sure that things look very, very approachable, really delicious, and half the time I don't even use the word vegan very much. It's only when really necessary, and then people just, they may or may not even notice that these foods are vegan, but they do know that I work in health, and so they trust that, okay, if she says that these amazing looking enchiladas are made with high quality ingredients and that they're going to be healthier for me, then great. But I did keep in mind that Jeff's fans would probably be the first people looking at my recipes. And so I really wanted to make sure everything looked really easy, really approachable, all while making sure there's room for decadent treats like cookie dough stuffed cupcakes. Because every once in a while, whether it's a birthday or a special occasion, you want to have something that tastes like a real treat and not something that's healthy or, the stereotypical vegan. Or I actually also do gluten-free baking too. And so I wanted to change the stereotype behind what people expect or have previously experienced vegan and gluten-free food to taste like. So thank you so much for the kind words. And so you'll find like the breakfast, lunch, snacks, drinks categories, but then you'll also see a category on my website called treats. And it's not dessert, it is treats. And that's exactly what they are. I don't hold back.
Oh,
I went
thank
there
you
first.
Well, of course she did. Alexandra's like, I know exactly where that is.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead, Dotsie.
Yeah, no, thank you for the work that you do. This is this has
thanks.
been really fantastic and enlightening to have you on in a few categories, and we appreciate you spending time with us.
It's truly an honor and a pleasure just to be speaking with both of you. You both are incredible. Like I said, you're my heroes, and I hope that we speak again.
We will. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the Switch for Good, please visit us at switch4good.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to Switch for Good. This is the future.